My name is Erica Lorraine Spencer, and I remain subject to state surveillance and terrorism by the state of California that is operating a malicious targeting system, which is referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices. And it is in violation of federal stalking statute 18 U.S.C. sections 2261A subsections 1 and 2. My website and podcast serve the public good by publishing evidence of the public entity's ceaseless engagement in a pattern of conduct intended to stalk and monitor via communication devices, surveil, harass, and terrorize an American citizen in concert with the people of the state of California. Documentation serves the lawful purposes of wide exposure, federal prosecution, and influencing federal legislation with policies specifically designed to punish, dismantle, and disincentivize an unprecedented targeting system by a public entity that acts in concert with the people of the state in order to criminally place under surveillance and terrorize an American citizen, which is a matter of public corruption in the state of California. Notice: intellectual property theft is particularly egregious and equally unlawful where the sole inventor and creator of the intellectual property is the targeted individual. Erica Lorraine Spencer, subject to the unconstitutional and inhumane government system of gang stalking, otherwise referred to as federal group stalking and monitoring via communication devices, because of which the intellectual property created by the targeted individual, who is, in fact, Erica Lorraine Spencer, as the intellectual property also proves, serves to establish via evidence and expose the existence of criminal surveillance and thus an inherent threat posed by the U.S. government and the civilian population sharing engagement in the unlawful system. Such evidence that includes all of the content created by Erica Lorraine Spencer, images, videos, audio, etc., belongs solely and entirely to Erica Lorraine Spencer only and is necessarily published online in order to protect her life, safety, and liberty as the targeted individual, who is also the intellectual property owner, no less protected from theft procured through targeting by a public entity. Theft of any intellectual property belonging to Erica Lorraine Spencer, which is necessarily committed while she, being both creator and inventor, remains oppressed by the public entity via criminal surveillance, is a criminal and inhumane means of infringement under all circumstances and not protected nor enforceable pursuant to any invalid or fraudulent acts of copyright, trademarks, patents, etc., including as it pertains to any ideas associated with or generated from the intellectual property or the intellectual property owner, Erica Lorraine Spencer, whether creative, business, or otherwise, nor does the intellectual property owner consent to any such means of infringement and theft. Erica Lorraine Spencer here. The following is an audio version of video evidence that is captured for purposes of mass distribution, which is why I am capturing it and sharing it on the podcast for evidentiary purposes and also to reveal the wealth of documentation that extends beyond what it is that I document on podcasts. Much of the video and images will be published onto the YouTube channel, the P.O.C, and it is also shared on the Google Drive. Again, this is for purposes of revealing what I remain subject to, which is federal group stalking and monitoring. It is a demonic system of state surveillance that the government is practicing in concert with the people of the state, and it should be known and well understood that for the government to engage in federal group stalking and monitoring, this is a crime that is committed with a criminal purpose to threaten the life of an American citizen. This is to conspire to murder and or permanently kidnap an American citizen while engaging in a perpetual sex offense in concert with the people of the state. This is literally the P.O.C. This is the proof that the people of the state are stalking with the government. This is downtown Ontario Luxury Apartments, and this is a co-conspirator of murder. That airport's already being shut down. This is the demon. License 8 Bob Kelly George 642. That's a Lexus. That's P.O.C. All right. That's the population that's conspiring my murder, stalking me with the government that has no business at all, and they will not be able to explain away, hovering over the downtown Ontario luxury apartments at 12:15 in the morning, and they are doing so in concert with the population that are stalking me everywhere that I'm going. That's the significance of stalking with light. That's what's happening under the fake sun. This is what the entity is doing. And tonight, the Ontario Police stalked me by helicopter as I'm leaving the Ovid Family Community Library. The entity, Ontario Police, sharing in the pattern of conduct tonight. And the Ontario Police are stalking right now while the Ontario Police Department is monitoring with the City of Ontario that's using commercial planes to follow me around. Everybody in the apartment building is stalking. The people that stayed indeed are being federally prosecuted. This case, like I stated, like I've fully expounded upon in multiple discussions, not just what I discussed, yesterday, it's April 25th, 2026. And the people that say this is war. This is war in the United States. It's domestic terrorism, and terrorists are going to prison. Alrighty, this is P.O.C. It's currently 12:16 a.m. I don't know about that, but 8LGY819, sexual assault and battery. 7SHN980, sexual assault and battery. This conduct, sexual assault and battery. And they're doing so with 7-Eleven, who's engaged in harassment. And they're also making purchases. This is the federal RICO case. And this is the City of Ontario that's stalking by planes and helicopters. And the people of the state are engaging in that servitude. 6 Victor 18064. And so is 7-Eleven engaging what is using the business. They're coming around stalking, using the truck as a means of light activity. And they're doing so under what is the engineered environment and the fake moon as well. Genesis Logistics, this is P.O.C. 7-Eleven, where the entity engaged in stalking with Owens at this 7-Eleven in the engineered environment. I showed you the impossible light activity. This is where the entity is engaged in kidnapping with the Ontario Police Department. The entity engaging in what is gang stalking at this 7-Eleven historically, and they are doing so as those that are also immigrants in the U.S., engaging the pattern of conduct, and the entity is engaged in what is very much targeting as well. This is sexual assault and battery. All right, 7-Eleven is going to be prosecuted for that. This is 7-Eleven is a gang member. Okay, this is P.O.C. And this is the signage that you're putting up with regard to targeting. No backpacks allowed, very specific with regard to the pattern of conduct. And they're harassing this little in here in this ghetto establishment that I'm going to steal. This is a demon also. They're engaging in the pattern of conduct, and they're engaging in that while they're in the U.S., while they're targeting with the U.S. government, 7-Eleven and the third parties that are employed here. I just want to document this. This is the City of Ontario that's engaged in that. This is the P.O.C. at 7-Eleven. This is pacing under the guise of a delivery. Light activity. This is P.O.C. All right, you'll recall my documentation. The entity that has its employees here systematically monitoring with the Ontario Police by helicopter, stalking with the City of Ontario by commercial airline planes. This is impossible light activity. These are 4 sets of legs, not based on what are headlights. That's impossible light activity. They are indeed gang stalking. Those are the headlights, the license plates that I just read, the 7SHN980. And the employees are stalking and terrorizing, engaging in sexual assault and battery, which I'm going to prosecute the business for. And they're engaging in this in furtherance of murder. All right, the Courtyard Villas apartments are stalking. Woodside Senior Apartments, I've already documented. They're engaging in the pattern of conduct right now. This is relevant positioning, and they're engaging in that together as an entity. All right, this is San Bernardino, California. I'm at Mount View and 2nd Street. And my documentation in 2019, 2020 shows the same pattern, by the way, in San Bernardino, California. This is P.O.C. The entity is maintaining the fake sun, covering it up in the sky space. I captured it on the bus aboard Route 14. Remaining over me just like the exact same pattern of conduct, not different. And this is an entity that is monitoring, giving out food. All right, this is the P.O.C. The government knows where I'm at. They're monitoring with the state. This is P.O.C. This is P.O.C. This is San Bernardino, California, and the demons, you're talking about territorial demons, the same pattern of conduct, but you're talking about the spiritual condition, because remember, this is criminal activity and it's also demonic activity. So this is the way the pattern of conduct is underway, and it is not about the demographics, it's not even about the money, but this is how the demon-possessed conduct themselves in San Bernardino, which is, you're talking about with what is the same level of corruption and the level of income, the typical neighborhood makeup, and the entity that's engaging under the guise of having what is a high poverty rate, and it's not based on that. All right, it's the same P.O.C. with San Diego, California. This is P.O.C. The government is gang stalking the exact same. P.O.C. And this is amongst the homeless community that are engaged in the pattern of conduct, by the way. Mount View and 2nd. This is at Meadowbrook Park and Tower. Apartment homes where the government's maintaining commercial planes hovering over me. This is the fake sun right here. Let me show it to you. They're right here. All right, this is indeed the specific environment where the entities engaged in that P.O.C. with maintaining plane activity. And the people of the state, these are people that I do not know, and they know exactly who I am. The dead end is surrounding. This is surrounding conduct. And this is surveillance, which you recognize under the fake sun. This is an entity that is surrounding. The music is audible activity. This is a government subsidized housing home, but it doesn't matter even when it's not government funded housing. But this is the fact that it's a government facilitating, it's a state facilitating venue, the government HUD housing. In other words, this is an indicator regarding under the illusion private property versus state property. This is the courthouse. They're monitoring me and they know who I am. I don't know who they are. They know exactly who I am and they are gang stalking me right now. This is P.O.C. This is psychopathic pacing that's in San Bernardino, California. At no point in time is this ever happening when I'm en route to Fontana, when I'm remaining in Ontario, when I'm en route to Upland, when I'm in Upland. It is currently 8:41 a.m. This is the pattern of conduct that's a threat to the life of the target individual. This is P.O.C. And the entity is also, again, particularly perturbed, hostile, as I enter into different territories documenting the pattern of conduct. The government's going to be prosecuted for that as well. This is P.O.C.
Mine's 10, 14, and 15.
This is P.O.C.
19 does, but you got to catch
The entity's flying over my head by commercial plane, targeting where the fake sun is over me, and this is the entity stalking in the perimeter by helicopter. This is San Bernardino Police Department. This is Darren Goodman's handiwork. He was also terrorizing me with the Upland Police Department. He is still at it, and I will be federally prosecuting. In fact, this is his prosecution. I documented him gang stalking me in San Bernardino, California in 2024 as well, and I documented him gang stalking me in 2022 before he transferred to San Bernardino. That's still engaged in state surveillance, as you can see by the helicopter activity. Alrighty, this is the entity targeting. I am at the same intersection, Mount View and 2nd. This is the entity that's speaking to where the state is stalking using helicopters. This is terrorism that's committed in concert with the people. That person is stalking me. They know exactly who I am, and they're maintaining surveillance together. This is Sierra Avenue and 2nd, okay? There are no commercial planes that are coming from an airport anywhere in San Bernardino, nor from the Ontario International Airport or LAX or Cable Airport. None of these airports are including what is hovering over this apartment complex. This is the pattern of conduct of surveillance in the sky space, okay? Doing so where the fake sun is right here over me. Look at my pictures. The entity is covering up the fake sun, removing the clouds, and you can see it brighter, but this is it right here. This is P.O.C. San Bernardino. That's Darren Goodman. Okay, and before him, the demon that was over this department before, and Darren Goodman's coming from Upland, who's being prosecuted. That's Marcelo Blanco, that's maintaining that ongoing criminal surveillance system. And around we go. This is the pattern of conduct in San Bernardino, California. P.O.C. All right, I just want to show how the entity is following. When I am walked, you see the vantage point where they were flying as I'm approaching the people of the state that are handing out the food at 2nd and Mount View. They're flying across that field. While I'm at that intersection, this is Sierra and Mount View. A demon is stalking in the path. This is what you saw the Ontario International Airport doing at 12 in the morning with the people of the state at downtown Ontario Luxury Apartments. This is an unlawful threat. This is, again, Darren Goodman that's engaging, monitoring me with the people of the state. This is the psychological torture, and this is the entity that's conspiring murder. And this is San Bernardino, California, that's sharing a pattern of conduct. They are improperly parked, and they stop right here when I start recording. So they were already following, and they're illegally parked just on the side of the road where the entity is stalking by planes, doing so in the middle of the street, stopping, and the light is green. They are doing so while the entity is monitoring me and stalking. This is Sierra, and this is the vantage point where they are as I'm walking down this corner, flying over my head. And the people of the state, because this is supposed to normalize what the pattern of conduct looks like, and they are monitoring, so the property, the venue, and they're doing so while the entity is stalking me by helicopter and by commercial planes. And there's no airport where they're engaging in this. It's surveillance. This is the entity that's clearly just blatantly stalking. This is San Bernardino, California, okay? This is the P.O.C. This is surrounding. All right, and this is the government subsidized housing. They're violating housing laws. Just like I referenced, while the entity is engaged in what is violating a woman by stalking her, this is a violation of HUD rules. And this is going to be a means of prosecuting and adding to federal prosecution while the government's engaged in this. Those that are receiving HUD housing, they're in violation while they are stalking as an entity, a woman, regardless of the fact that I'm not a resident of that venue. This is based on the corruption of these property management companies and the entity that's receiving and participating in the government housing programs while they're gang stalking. Okay, this is what I was pointing out to, that Avanath Capital Management, that speaker companies are engaging in. It's another means of prosecuting them and prosecuting the government, okay, with whom the people of the state that are receiving subsidies to pay for their rent, their livelihood, while they're gang stalking another while receiving government assistance. Okay, you're not going to receive that assistance. Okay, this is showing that P.O.C. This is violation, in other words, of federal law. This is the basis of removing them. These are an idea regarding the ways in which policies and procedures and laws are going to serve to prosecute that population, because not everybody in here can go to federal prison, but there's a way to touch them with federal law while the entity's engaged in warfare. A war in the state of California while they're engaged in civil war against American citizens like myself, targeting them and doing so with impunity. Because right here, the federal government's documenting you, and you're sitting there with all manner of boldness and doing so with regard to a pattern of conduct with the government and furtherance of murdering. And this is the entity that's doing so as though you will tell the federal government that you're going to end, because that's what this is. That's an unlawful threat. And it's on behalf of any concert with Darren Goodman. Remember that name? Because I'm going to prosecute him. He committed kidnapping in 2022. This is P.O.C. It is currently 9:45 a.m. Alrighty, this is 2nd and Sierra 8, Edward Sam Bob 809, P.O.C. The African American woman gets in the back seat, and they're engaged in monitoring with the government and further into murdering me, and they're all stalking as well. This one is the one that stops in my path, aiming light. That's the mentally ill behavior. And it's letting you know about what they're all doing. And this is stalking by a city. Sharing the pattern of conduct, P.O.C. By the way, it's 9:47 a.m. Alrighty, this is the entity that's engaging in what they think is a joke. They have surveillance on the on the vehicle. They are actually engaged in surveillance with the entity that is hovering by plane and stopping in the road. They're stalking over here and crossing path 84233 Charlie 4. And they're doing so at what is Arrowhead and Rialto. This is where the entity is keeping the fake sun, right here over the top of my head, okay? The entity is engaged in what is exposing itself, like displaying charcoal in the grocery store, like wearing the Target bags while they're gang stalking. This is the entity that while you're going toward a field. This is over the San Bernardino County West Valley Detention Center while they're committing kidnapping. Soaring down at this large plane hovering where there's no airport. They're engaged in the pattern of conduct. The entity is also engaged in what is pacing. These are demons that are monitoring me in San Bernardino. And this is the criminal pattern of conduct that Darren Goodman is engaging in using helicopters. And this is also the entity that's engaging what is demonic. This person right here that's walking, these are demons that are pacing. Pay attention. This is demonic. These are demons. This is demonic activity, and it's relevant to criminal surveillance. This is P.O.C. UPS flying over my head in San Bernardino, California today, flying over the government subsidized housing venue where they are engaged in the gang violence, gang stalking. The entity is engaging in that pattern of conduct while I'm in San Bernardino, California, where the fake is indeed remaining over the top of my head. Psychopathic pacing, 7 Mary Sam Kelly 610. 6 Xavier Apple Thomas 374, 22231 Larry 4, and ARUNI Heart U. Omnitrans is gang stalking in San Bernardino. I'm going to prosecute that transit line that's engaging in the pattern of conduct and furtherance of murder. It's a RICO case, okay? As is every business, every single last business. And this is a demonic environment. Entities engaging in what is that P.O.C., okay? This is the psychotic behavior that the Ontario International Airport maintains, and they're doing it under the fakes. An airport in the city, no airport in the city, stalking in the sky space, which is proven in the scientific environment. And the entity is going to be prosecuted as the mentally ill entity that conspires murder while they stalk and psychologically torture someone, which officials like Darren Goodman have years of experience in. And doing so while the entity is gang stalking as a population, they have years of experience in murdering people and psychologically torturing them. This is the demon-possessed population. That's why they're under what's impossible to be over me in Fontana, California at the same time. It's not. This is the entity that's stalking with the fake sun while I'm en route to Fontana aboard Omnitrans. Remaining in Ontario, California, out the library, at the town square, out on the bus stop, bench, we're on Euclid Avenue and F Street, at Bethel Congregation. This is the entity that's engaged in that. And in the sky space, you're seeing Darren Goodman targeting, and Darren Goodman telling the world that he's targeting, while helicopter activity is being observed and is surrounding me, which is an unlawful threat posed by the city, which is the pattern of conduct by the state. All right, and this is the entity that's engaged in that, and these commercial airline companies are being federally prosecuted while you see their criminal pattern of conduct in Ontario and San Bernardino in that specific environment. Okay, that's not a landing, that's criminal surveillance. It's stalking. All right, that's P.O.C. It is currently, by the way, 9:58 a.m. All right, and 9:59 a.m. I'm at Upland, California, at the entrance of the Upland Public Library, and that is after walking north from Ontario to Upland, California on Euclid Avenue, where the entity keeps the fake sun. It rises in alignment to me on Euclid Avenue. It stays in Ontario and sets in Ontario when I don't leave and go to Upland, California, or any other city like what you see when I'm in San Bernardino today, or when I go to Fontana. And moreover, the entity has the fake sun over me while the people of the state are at the entrance of the Upland Public Library gang stalking. That's what you're seeing underway in San Bernardino, California, at Arrowhead and Rialto, which is not at the entrance doors at 450 North Euclid Avenue. Okay, this is speaking to the mayor, which is a terrorist in San Bernardino, the mayor, which is a terrorist in Upland, California, the mayor, which is a terrorist in Fontana. They're engaged in psychopathic pacing. This is the third time. P.O.C. License 9, Jerry Queen, Yolanda 902. They're going up and down the street. They're gang stalking as an entity, but they're all monitoring together. And this is San Bernardino Police. Okay, they've been engaged in stalking. San Bernardino County Probation Department, remember they went to Fontana Police Department after they commit kidnapping, and I document them, and then the demons engage in what is retaliation by going to the location where you're at under the fake sun in order to communicate a threat. In San Bernardino County Probation, that threat was documented while they're under a fake sun. And when I go to San Bernardino, they're engaged in that because San Bernardino Probation committed kidnapping. And then they engage in what is torture and threatening conduct to go to the Fontana the Fontana Lewis Library under that fake sun with regard to what is monitoring my evidence that's online. Okay, this is called crossing a path, not a legitimate business. That is Omnitrans. All right, it is currently 10 a.m. on the dot. The fake sun's over the Upland Public Library, like I'm stating, where Omnitrans is gang stalking, where the people of the state are engaged in gang stalking. And under the fake sun, you're witnessing the evidence of a mentally ill and corrupt population. Omnitrans is using the bus line as a means of light activity. Okay, that's why a fake sun is over my head when they are within and without the bus schedule which they use to target me. That's why the fake sun is here. This is P.O.C. and the prosecution for the people of the state regarding what is the conspiracy to commit murder, which San Bernardino, California is fully engaged in. That includes Thomas Garza. That includes the San Bernardino County Sheriff's Department. That engaged in the Sheriff's Office that refused to provide service of process. All right, this is the entity that's engaged in what is targeting for years, and that includes the entity that is at the gang stalking courthouse. This is Arrowhead. My documentation shows the fake sun over me at 12 o'clock in the afternoon. All right, and the entity stalking by helicopter over the top of my head, where Thomas Guards is gang stalking wearing a robe on a bench, engaging in the sophisticated pattern of conduct in a courtroom, while refusing to engage in that which I am entitled to under the Constitution, state and federal. And he did so in furtherance of murdering me while I'm still subject to that pattern of conduct. In San Bernardino at that, looking at the same justice center, as they like to call it. This is P.O.C. It is currently 10:01 a.m. Alrighty, this is the pattern of conduct already established as I revisit any city and I show you how the entity is gang stalking, criminal surveillance, knowledge of who I am and my presence to engage in that pattern of conduct. The entity that is engaged in what is gang stalking pursuant to what is statewide surveillance, okay? But this is the entity that's flying distant in every direction. This isn't pursuant to an airport in San and the entity that engaged in what is hovering, like they do over the Emporia apartment complex on Hope Boulevard, like they do over the El Pollo Loco inside of the Ontario Village Shopping Center, like they do over the Chevron at East Street and Euclid. There's no airport over here where they're engaging in that. That's the airport over there, and the entity is flying in all manner of direction, which is what I showed UPS engaging in. This is the entity that's also another indication when they're just stalking. You already know this conclusively because of the environment. The entity is gang stalking literally the demon possessed that are homeless. These are people that are under the control of the government, and this is demonic. This is a cult. This is satanic, and it's criminal activity. And they're monitoring with the government, and they don't even have anywhere to live. They're demons, and the entity is following, stalking by commercial planes, and they're flying in all manner of direction. They don't have an order, a rhyme, or scheme. They're engaged in what is stalking. They're doing so, by the way, at Stoddard and Rialto, and this is a long-existing gang stalking car wash, and they are monitoring now while they're pacing around looking at the vehicles, which is light activity, while they're gang stalking at the car wash. And this is the psychopath keeping their back to me. He's studying his device, and he knows exactly where I'm at. And you know that because the fake sun is here in San Bernardino, California, where I have not been in years, but the fake sun is here. And that's how you know what this business is engaging in, and it's criminal. License 9 Charlie Edward Henry 699. And this is the entity that, I want to be clear, gang stalking airports are going to be subject to being removed altogether. Gang stalking police departments are going to be subject to being removed altogether, federally prosecuted, removed from authority. It's a waste of money and expenditures. The entity that's engaged in criminal surveillance makes up reasons, superficial ones, regarding the budgets that they maintain, where the money is going, and the entities engaging, as you see, millions of dollars on criminal activity that they have not told the American people that they're engaging in, and that the American people are under surveillance by the very constituents themselves, who are all demons, by the way. This is the entity that's claiming that they are have a deficit, that they have inadequate resources, while they're spending it and devoted and committed to their actual focus, which is surveillance. That's speaking to the county. These demons that are sitting as directors, shareholders, all right, sitting as a chair over a department that's there for the purpose of surveillance. They're merely creating departments so that they are creating positions to pay themselves when it is existing for a criminal purpose. Removing that is finding so many resources, monies that can be used legitimately. Okay, while the entity is, on the contrary, targeting American citizens who are law-abiding citizens, who are hard workers, who are fully competent, and the entity targets them. This is what I have documented as the entity engaged in that. Having people like me in a position of homelessness, while they are keeping me at a level, and puppets are engaging in that pattern of conduct. Those that are engaged in what is giving up on life, that are engaged in what is relegated to being a servant of the system, right where the government decides that it wants you to be. When you are removing these departments, finding money and resources that can help people that are actually in need of those, removing businesses that are using money, receiving money, making money off of criminal surveillance, this is what is the discovery of an abundance of resources that are not missing. All right, you don't need more programs. You don't need different laws. You need to remove the surveillance system in the ways in which it is. And it's through the businesses, it's through these companies, it's through the government and those at the heads of these governments, of these government positions. And that's where you will find an abundance of resources. And that's exactly what's going to happen. This is P.O.C. It's also relevant to what are in government programs like receiving housing benefits, which no terrorist is, and no gang stalking venue shall. EDZ0C99, paper plate, P.O.C. All right, this is the fake sun over me. I just want to show the plane activity. They're going in all manner of direction, okay? That's P.O.C., the same exact pattern of conduct. All right, the images that you just saw me take of the demon that is stalking conspicuously at the adjacent computer desktop is engaged in criminal monitoring. This is a superficial means of blocking me from access to my account that I successfully and correctly logged into. This is criminal activity that San Bernardino County is sharing in. The entity is surrounding with stalkers inside of the venue, and this is the city of Fontana that's engaging in this pattern of conduct. This is the unlawful intrusion in a federal case, and the entity is doing this in furtherance of murder while monitoring the evidence against them, and this is the basis of federal prison. This is, again, criminal activity that Lisa Hazen is engaging in. The entity is engaging in that, and they're doing this on the venue of the internet, okay? This is the entity that's maintaining the impossible light activity, literally on the desks, and the entity is engaging in this, which is an unlawful threat to do so in your face in this manner, and this is exactly what you're going to document, and doing so by placing themselves right next to me as I am in the midst of logging in is this attempt, and the entity is doing so while I accurately logged into my account. So I want to document this because this is also where you're going to prosecute with regard to Google and the online platforms who are also going to be a part of the criminal prosecution. The people that stay are going to prison for this. This is what they do when they get away with trying to murder someone that they are actively stalking, and then that person comes up missing. No one knows what happened. They're written off as a drug addict, etc. It's an unlawful threat, and they're engaging in this with an ongoing level of impunity, and they're engaging in this pattern of conduct while the ongoing investigation is underway. It's currently, as you can see, 12:14 p.m. I'm going to go ahead and continue logging in right now. This is P.O.C. Okay, so I want to document. You see the previous screen, and as I click on the option, it says that it's blocking the ability to log into my Yahoo account. Unavailable because too many attempts, and this is untrue. This is the entity that's accessing my account when they are gang stalking. They're on the venue of the internet. Cloaking their identity as mine. Again, the IP address, this is all federal stalking. So, and they're on surveillance cameras. The employees, everybody's being prosecuted right now at the same time, while a gang stalker is on an adjacent computer, while they're documenting themselves as I'm prosecuting them and showing who's around me, what's happening on the computer. This is all, they're simultaneously serving actually my prosecution purposes. But I want to show the screen because this is stating what's not the truth. I have not had any errors regarding logging in fact, and so it's also blocking my ability to access. This is unsuccessful, but I'm documenting the criminal effort, and this is what the entities engage in while they are engaging in criminal surveillance. This is what Darren Goodman is engaged in. Okay, this is what Michael Dorsey is engaged in. This is what Mike LORENZ is sharing in while they're engaged in the pattern of conduct as I go from city to city, and they're doing this in the specific environment. So I just want to show you this is indeed what's relevant behind pacing behind me, because that's what this is. And they're doing so in the specific environment. This is not only harassment, it's psychological torture. These are also the vagina monitors that are engaging in that. This is multiple shadows. And they're engaging in what is criminal monitoring while it's manipulating what's happening in my device. This is speaking to access to my account. All right, and this is criminal activity. And this is also the same venue where they come in, oh, we're gonna need you to cut, please, could you please be quiet, while they're gang stalking you and doing so in your face, on devices as well. So I just want to be clear, it is currently 12:16 p.m. This is relevant to the venues themselves on the venue of the internet, the online venues that are sharing in the criminal pattern of conduct, P.O.C. Okay, it is currently 12:20 p.m. This is a follow-up regarding the video that you just listened to via podcast and the video that you can see that you are viewing if you are looking at it via the video evidence. Moments following this video speaking to what is an entity that's engaging in surveillance via devices on the internet as well, which the internet is nothing other than a facilitating venue, okay? Meaning the venues of social media platforms, websites, wherever it is that you're going online, you are under surveillance while you are on whatever website, wherever you're at, and the sites where you are visiting are sharing and surveilling you. They are facilitating. They are engaging and participating in surveillance that they are not ignorant that the government is maintaining. So that is literally the term of a facilitating venue, such as being on YouTube. YouTube is engaging in surveillance on the venue of the internet while they maintain that platform. Okay, so and this is relevant to the conduct, the course of conduct that's underway online. And so moments after I just captured the video that you listened to right now, moments later, just like I stated, there were no errors with regard to logging into my account. And I took a screenshot of what my email account that's linked to my Google account. As I log in, it tells me you have secured your account, access to your account, which is what I originally did this morning. And I'll go ahead and recite it, but I took screenshots of it and it's uploaded to the Google Drive. This is education for you though. The entity that is, for example, I've documented this before. When I'm creating a Google account, you do not have to provide a phone number to create a Google account. Creating a phone number or providing a phone number is actually an option with regard to what is a security measure, whereby if you get locked out, you can enter in your phone number, and that's another way for Google to confirm that it's you, confirm your identity. However, you do not have to provide a phone number when you are creating a Google account. That is an illusion regarding the entity that will create an obstacle to stop you from doing something that you're doing. And what I'm doing is typically creating a Google account. In order to block me from that, the entity will create what is, and this is relevant to the devices that are under surveillance and the way in which we're under surveillance on the internet. And this is naturally going to implicate these websites such as Google, where I'm given what the target individual does not know may or may not be the actual Google website, the government that's engaging in surveillance. But let's be clear, Google is a third party, not a private party, it's a third party. So if you want to say it's some computer genius at the police department in the city that's keeping you under surveillance, and this is how the Google logo and everything that's appearing on your phone as though it is Google, it's official, and you've been blocked as you're operating your device, as you're accessing what is the Google app, using Google's resources, and unable to do so because as far as you know, and all that you're responsible to know is what you are reasonably relying on, which is generating on your phone. Okay, the entity is monitoring and has no right under the Constitution. So Google, that is also a third party, is inevitably linked to the ongoing criminal monitoring, which is in this case obstructing justice and posing an unlawful threat to the life of an American citizen during the course of a federal investigation. So the entity is engaging in creating a superficial barrier. Oh, you have to provide a phone number in order to create this Google account. And if you don't provide a phone number, then you can't move forward. That's not the requirement to create a Google account at all. You don't have to provide, there's no requirement for that whatsoever. And that's the evidence of your phone being monitored. That's the entity that is engaging what is violating your privacy rights in doing so. And that's also a superficial barrier, meaning it's not even real. And they're able to block you from creating that. And that's if you don't know any better, because there are ways to maneuver, clear out your cookies, clear out everything, wipe out everything, delete all the accounts off of your phone. That's one of the ways that you can do it. Clear out your mobile network settings in your phone, just reset everything. And because everything that you're doing, it's accumulating, and the entity that's monitoring you is sharing in that accumulated traffic, everything that you're doing and everything that you're going in, and all of the history that's created. And then this is how they're able to, once you access it the first time, there is a record of it, and then after that first time, then they can block you from it. But the first time, like if you use a new device, you have to use that device the first time you are successful. After you use it the first time, then they're able to stop you, block you, and whatever it is that they may be doing. This is based on my troubleshooting the entity that's engaging in what is monitoring. This is just what with regard to surveillance on devices. Okay, so it's something that it is able to do once they have monitored your use of it. When you are initially engaging in it, there's no history of you or using that device or engaging in it. They're not able to, it's been my experience, able to stop what doesn't exist. Okay, so once there's cookies of you accessing the website, using this device, then they are able to block your ability to access that particular website again, block your ability to do whatever it is that you're generating a file or uploading some document, whatever it is you're doing. But you have it's like one free try once you do it the first time. After there's a history created, meaning you've done it once, thereby they're able to then block you from doing it again. And this is the entity that's basically stalking you online. Okay, so that's an example, and I've documented that over and over and over again. This is the entity that's monitoring, and this is while they're doing it during an ongoing federal court case. So you're going to prison for these things. So, but the entity's engaged in that, and they're educating you about surveillance. And Google does not create. That's letting you know it's not even true. It's not genuine. That's an illusion regarding surveillance that we are subject to. Surveillance that's on your device, and for a superficial barrier like that to be created, it is informative regarding knowledge about who you are and what you're doing. Okay, even if it's merely just to harass you. Okay, in my circumstance, it is to harass, but it's also to threaten. It's also because Marcelo Blanco, Mike Lorenz, Paul Leon, Michael Dorsey, Darren Goodman, all of these names that I am referring to with regard to the pattern of conduct as I go to San Bernardino today, and the fake sun is over me. Oh, they're gang stalking, right? They're absolutely gang stalking. They don't stop the criminal activity, but then they want to gang stalk me and follow me as I then publish the evidence of what you committed, rather than stopping the pattern of conduct. They don't want to stop that. And then they're engaging in foolish endeavors to try to block me from uploading it onto the internet. And that's exactly what's happening when the fake sun's remaining over me from Ontario to San Bernardino, back to Fontana. Whereas the entity's keeping the fake sun over Fontana the entirety of that time. So where is San Bernardino, and at what point is the sun ever in San Bernardino, let alone over me, when I never go anywhere near San Bernardino? This is the entity that's sharing a behavioral pattern in that environment that is impossible, also irreconcilable with the natural environment and science. This is the entity that is very much engaged in what is obsessively stalking, but then also doesn't want you to maintain the evidence and publish it, share it, prosecute them. Psychotic, delusional. Okay? And not only that, this is the entity that's delusional because it's not going to work. It's not going to work. And moreover, this is the foolishness regarding what is no magician at all. When you're engaging in stalking, you are doing so in a manner in which I know that you're stalking. And so this is the entity that's engaging in what is automatically serving to prosecute itself, and they're not secretly gang stalking inside of the library. Everybody is here, and everybody's being prosecuted, and everybody is within that entity. Also, everybody's in the engineered environment. All right, you're an engineer light. You're not just using the computer. You're under the fake sun. You're not just in here at work. Okay, the entity is gang stalking by planes and helicopters. You are not separate and distinct, and nor ignorant even about that. And under the law, you're not going to be treated like that. And if you look to the left and the right, it's not relevant. You will be prosecuted. Everyone knows what you're doing. So this is the entity that's engaging in that level of malicious conduct, and it's psychopathic, and it's a threat to the people of the state, or not to the people of the state, but as the people of the state are engaging in this pattern on behalf of the government. All right, that comes into the library, maintaining surveillance for the state. It's a threat to American citizens who don't have evidence, who don't know what's going on when they try to document, for example, just giving an example, and then you can't use your devices. You don't understand perhaps you have one part of the pattern of conduct, but you don't know that you're under surveillance as they are, in the ways in which the tactics that they employ when they're targeting online. Okay, and this is something that is also a threat. When something is threatening your life like this, and then something is impeding upon your ability to successfully prove it, to gain any traction regarding trying to protect yourself, or trying to prove to other people that you're not imagining it, that you're not crazy, that you're not making it up. All the ways in which I can empathize with an American citizen that is subject to this, and they're suffering in silence. The entity is stalking them, causing them to be forced to live in a bubble, and they're engaging in this conduct, like stalking them in a library, and thinking that also then that you're going to take my evidence, stop my ability to access my own account. The audacity. That's exactly what needs to be locked up in prison. Okay, the mindset behind that, the predatory behavior inherent to that, the maniacal psychopath that is determined, is what is illustrated in that. That's what's out here killing American citizens. Stalking in libraries, silently, staring at books and at computers and holding the hands of children engaged in criminal activity. That is exactly what I'm giving voice to, and that's also why the penalties are so severe. Because the pattern of conduct is not limited to or changing based on the type of venue where you're at. If I go to a school full of kindergartners, the entity is gang stalking me. All right, when I'm aboard public transportation, the entity is gang stalking me. When I go into the grocery store, the entity is gang stalking me. When I'm at my fake friend's house, the entity is gang stalking me. When I'm in the bathroom at the public library, the entity is gang stalking. And the co-conspirator of murder has the audacity to sit right next to you. And then be so sick and twisted to sit there and act like they're not. That's the purpose of gang stalking by a population. The entity that has conjured up this sort of sick system, they're calling themselves chiefs of police. They're calling themselves mayors, city attorneys. All right, those are the ones that are being removed from position, and the people that say are indeed terrorists, and they will be prosecuted as well. And there are many ways to touch the entire population. All right, it is currently 12:31 p.m. This is speaking to an unlawful threat posed to my life while I am documenting and in full execution of my constitutional right to do so. And this is an entity that is desperate to try to compete with that, which you cannot under the law. This is showing the lawlessness of these, and you've already lost when it's on video. It's on being documented. This is an entity that is you've already lost when it's been documented. You're supposed to be doing this in the dark, in the secret, and no one's supposed to know about it. Okay, well, you've already lost that bet. And so what are you doing now? So now you're just going to continue stalking. You're going to continue to try to then block what they have on record regarding your criminal activity. Like, where is the line? Okay, because it should have been like not gang stalking in the first place. That's the standard. And so this is just showing the level of desperation and how far an entity will go. But it is education for you, because you need to understand that surveillance is real and all the tactics of that entity that is engaging in surveillance. The mentally ill population, okay, that wants to stalk you and then silence you about the fact that they are stalking you. And they are not stalking for funsies. They are stalking for a criminal purpose, and it is to take your life, to kidnap you. And as they, being the people of the state, are stalking you, they are doing so as the state that is stalking you. Okay, that's the unlawful threat. It is currently, I am successfully in my account, and I did upload screenshots of my email account. And if I actually had failures, too many attempts into my account, that's exactly what would be reflected in my emails. And I'm trying to think, because even if that was sent also, I'll go into my Google account as well and take screenshots, because you could contend, oh, well, you could have just deleted it, even though I don't lie, but I try to entertain any sort of counter argument. I will go into my Google account and take images of that as well, because the Google account will show history. There's been no failures in my account at all. So I logged in this morning, and the computer just logged me out right now, and I logged back in. And this is like the instance of stating that you have to provide a phone number to create a Google account. No, you don't. And this entity tried to block me from accessing my Google account. And what's the significance of that? Because as I'm logging in my Google account, I'm uploading my videos onto YouTube and onto the Google Drive for you all to see how the U.S. government is gang stalking me as I went to San Bernardino today. And then I came to Fontana from San Bernardino, and so did the fake son. Okay, it's exposing those that are engaged in the pattern of conduct, and that is just as clear as Darren Goodman being in a vehicle. You clearly see in his face, his black skin, his thick black mustache, and the gun that he has on his dash, threatening me, following me around, just like the fake son, street for street, turn for turn. It's as good as me capturing video of him being in a car following me around. That's how potent and probative that evidence is. As I go to San Bernardino, and the entities gang stalking by commercial plane, gang stalking by helicopter, gang stalking with the people of the state under the fake sun. All right, this is P.O.C. It is currently 12:34 p.m. P.O.C. regarding vagina monitoring that A.G.S. is engaging in with this actor right here, which is, again, Michael Dorsey, a violent sex offender. And he's even walking out so you can witness him. This is federal prison. A.G.S. is also being criminally prosecuted. And the entity is stalking with helicopter, engaging in this ongoing tradition of stalking by helicopter as I walk outside of the Fontana Lewis Library that maintains a fake sun from morning until evening. This is while also how it mysteriously was over me in San Bernardino, California, where Darren Goodman is revisited as a terrorist, which I already established as a matter of evidence. This is the same entity, Michael Dorsey and Darren Goodman. These are terrorist organizations that shall no longer exist. This is the criminal expenditure of resources on domestic terrorism, where they're engaging in what is terrorism by keeping vagina and bathrooms under surveillance, with gang stalkers who are hiding themselves as security companies. No, they're not. They're demons that are stalking with light. And this is also federal prison, just sitting in the car, stalking with light with the Fontana police. And that is literally the strict liability basis to put this sex offender in prison. License 9KFN131. And this is the RICO case against American Guard Services, while the Fontana police are stalking in the bathroom, which you'll see in the images of a bunch of sex offenders pacing in and out, while psychopaths are outside aiming light. License 6LUX729. This is the significance of a fake sun over a venue where the mentally ill are stalking with light. This is what you're seeing them do with vehicles that are used to identify not just the particular sex offender, but the pattern of conduct shared by the entity. And this is where Lisa Hazen would be federally prosecuted. I'm going to prosecute Lewis Library. This is San Bernardino County. That does not need a facilitating venue for surveillance with minors. That's what she's engaged in. And this is the entity that's doing so while they're also monitoring the evidence, which all the vagina monitors are hostile about. So this is what the sex offender is engaged in. This is relevant positioning. And this is the entity that's engaged in what is surveillance inside of a bathroom. And they're doing so with a bunch of psychopaths who are in engineered light. Their shadows are going underneath the sink and outward. That's impossible light activity, while this is pacing, coming in and out. This is what they're doing on the freeways, on the roads and the highways under the fake sun. And they wait until my vagina is in a position inside of the restroom in order to engage in that. That's predatory and mentally ill behavior that Michael Dorsey is sharing in. Michael Dorsey is therefore responsible for it. And it's the same analysis with regard to a fake sun where Darren Goodman is stalking. Darren Goodman is stalking, and that's a basis of prison. And it's also a basis of what is removing what are gang members and terrorist organizations like the San Bernardino Police Department. Criminal waste of expenditures This is the ability to discover profound resources where the entities engage in criminal conduct with the people of the state who are maintaining surveillance inside of these venues. This is what an entity is doing while they are waiting for me to go into the restroom as the library is getting ready to close down. It's 6 p.m. right now. The alarm is audible activity. The entity is not typically sounding the alarm at closing time. It's because I'm documenting right now, which is, again, the focal point of everything that's happening amongst the demon-possessed population is centered around me and my vagina. That is literally the evidence to demonstrate you will not keep a library for the county. You will not keep a city police department that's engaged in surveillance, that's engaged in what is this criminal use of resources like the expenses pertaining to a helicopter that you're using so that sex offenders can keep you under surveillance in a bathroom. This is the entity that's engaging in that, and it is engaging in what is the sex offense with the people of the state, who are homosexuals over and under the age of majority, practicing predatory conduct with demons that are crawling into helicopters, and they're wasting millions of dollars using SWAT vehicles. That's what Fontana Police, that's what Michael Dorsey is committed to in order to engage in stalking one person. This is, again, the evidence that's going to remove Fontana Police altogether. This is the entity that's engaging in kidnapping. That's the evidence that's going to remove Ontario Police altogether. This is the entity that's committing kidnapping in Upland, California. This is the evidence that's going to remove the Upland Police Department altogether. The entity that's engaging in this level of the waste of expenditures, where the entities engaging in terrorism in the United States, and they're engaging in what are maintaining a population, targeting them while spending criminally resources on that criminal system. Okay, this is P.O.C. I just want to be clear, Lisa Hazen is being federally prosecuted. She's not remaining as as any manager for any county. She's prosecuted. This is the entity, and this is speaking to what is a template. You're going to be prosecuted as a terrorist. You're not keeping your current job, and you also won't be rehired with regard to the inability to get past a background check when you are prosecuted as a terrorist. This is also the loss of county buildings like the library, county buildings like where the entity is maintaining surveillance at the transitional assistance department where surveillance is underway, and the entity's committing fraud while they are stealing from a wealthy person who has been put into the position of being impoverished, receiving food stamps, and yet they're gang stalking me, and they know exactly who I am while they're engaging. That's fraud. While they're engaging with providing those food stamps, while simultaneously engaging in the pattern of conduct. The pattern of conduct directly proves that you know exactly who I am while you're sharing in the theft, in the criminal monitoring. That is the evidence supporting that San Bernardino County shall not maintain a transitional assistance department. And it is also the fact, because everyone in San Bernardino County is engaged in domestic terrorism, where the government will not be providing any assistance to the people of the state under any circumstances for housing, for food. They will not be. No terrorist is getting any government assistance. All right, this is the pattern of conduct. This is the terrorist who is being removed from office. She will not be remaining in office while the entity is practicing this pattern of conduct. Aquanetta Warren is removed from office by virtue of the Fontana Police Department gang stalking. And it is vice versa. The people of the state engaging in gang stalking is the evidence removing Aquanetta Warren from office for gang stalking. This is also the entity that is removing Michael Dorsey from position while the people of the state, and while that department is providing evidence, gang stalking me, you're not remaining in office. And it is also the basis to remove the ability for terrorists to fund their regime while they're engaging in the pattern of conduct in the U.S. And that's exactly what's going to happen. While Michael Dorsey has shown the ongoing determination and purpose to maintain surveillance in the face of what is federal repercussions for his co-defendant, Aquanetta Warren, but also with regard to what is being entirely un-American and sharing in criminal activity, sexual violence with minor children, doing so in what is an absurd manner, such as pertaining to my vagina, and then you're engaging in stalking in helicopter, which is very costly, while you're monitoring my evidence, all of which is unlawful, while he is also a demon, unfit by virtue of that mentally ill condition. This is the P.O.C. at the Fontana Lewis Library, where the entity maintains the fake sun, and the rainy day is no deviation from that same pattern of conduct. What AGS is doing in the vehicle, what the demons are doing, aiming their headlights toward the entrance while the entity is flying over by helicopter, this is the same pattern of stalking with light. This is what the entity is doing as I am already showing the evidence of a fake sun being over this venue from morning until evening, which is impossible to be the natural environment. Excuse me. All right, this is the documentation regarding what are cities within the state that are going to be federally prosecuted. This is the federal RICO, and it's also the basis of removing the ability to further finance and fund terrorism, which is removing terrorists like San Bernardino County and the venues that they're using for criminal activity, removing terrorists like Aquanetta Warren and Michael Dorsey from office. And this is also proven while the entity is maintaining that specific environment, which is relevant to the P.O.C. where the fake sun is present. And that's evidence that remains on the record, and it is supporting removing terrorist regimes like the city of Fontana. Where at the city of Fontana, I can document the supernatural, which is excluding the fact that Florida, for example, even Nevada, Arizona, or even anywhere in Northern California, and even Ontario, California, where the entity has the fake sun over me at 8:43 a.m. at 8437 Sierra Avenue, this very Fontana Lewis Library, and I'm inside of this location in the afternoon, right here at the bottom, and I'm looking at the same position of the fake sun. Hanging over the edge of this building is exactly where it's at while I'm inside of the Lewis Library at 8437 Sierra Avenue at 2:05 p.m., which I captured on video. This is where the entity shall be subject to what is a loss of the ability to further finance terrorism, which Michael Dorsey is engaged in, and he's going to be subject to a federal prosecution for that. In fact, no terrorist is going to be successful. Michael Dorsey shall be subject to prison. And every kidnapper, every one that's engaging in what is stalking at wearing these uniforms, using these vehicles in helicopters like Jay Escarpi on video, gang stalking me on more than one occasion, he's going to prison. Like McMillan, he's going to federal prison. This is the entity that's engaging in that, and this is how you're going to strip down domestic terrorism in the U.S. and also how you're going to recover the funds that domestic terrorists have hijacked in order to keep American citizens subject to war and exercising war tactics against them in furtherance of murdering and kidnapping them. And it is underway at the city libraries, such as what Fontana Lewis Library, which is San Bernardino County, is engaging in. This is P.O.C. It is currently 6:09 p.m. This is ongoing terrorism that I'm subject to while the entity is tracking my steps, not coincidentally crossing paths by helicopter while the demons are in position with light activity. This is that criminal cooperation with regard to surveillance that's underway as an entity while they are inside in the venue, tracking my steps, including tracking the status of my vagina, okay? They're engaging in what is monitoring everything that I'm doing, stalking while sitting at the computers. This is the pathetic conduct of the demons that are waiting to engage in that pattern of conduct so that you can just fly by me in what is a failed ritual. Michael Dorsey's mental illness is put before the world, which is also evidence to remove any police officer that's engaging in the satanic pattern of conduct. They are a threat to themselves and the public. Moreover, they're engaged in terrorism, which is un-American, and it is the act of war against American citizens. And you're going to be prosecuted and you will be removed. And you'll also be subject to mental examinations. This is P.O.C. It is currently 6:10 p.m. Okay, I do want to document. It is currently 6:13 p.m. Third-party license plate 6 Larry Uncle Xavier 729 is remaining in the path, stalking with light, which is an ongoing threat, while gang stalking on behalf of Michael Dorsey. So this is maintaining presence and stalking me on behalf of a police department that is engaged in what is using their helicopters also with regard to threatening me, but doing so while the people of the state are stalking with light, monitoring, including while they're being documented. This third party is subject to federal prison. Also, the security guards working with AGS, but I want to document that right now. It is 6:13 p.m. and the video is starting at 6:10. Excuse me. The video is ending at 6:10 p.m. I'm walking out at like 5:57, 5:58, right before 6 p.m. The video is interrupted with the alarm, which the entity does not typically sound, and I recited that. It's monitoring me in concert with the demons that are aiming with light, who are monitoring in a parking lot. These are psychopaths who are focused on aiming light. Excuse me, you're witnessing that in the video, and I went through that analysis, but I want to document what this mentally ill demon is doing in furtherance of murder and psychologically torturing someone. This is, again, what an entity in their mind is believing is some sort of ritual. This is witchcraft, and it's failed. So they're going to be prosecuted criminally for what is a pattern of conduct of surveillance and furtherance of murder. They're doing it with the police who just provided evidence to put them in prison, and they're also going to be subject to mental examinations, and I want to document the duration of time where they are stalking in the path under all circumstances, okay? This is the entity that's engaged in that and doing so at 6:14 p.m. This is P.O.C. This is the entity that is San Bernardino County, the city of Fontana, the people of the state that are sharing in that pattern of conduct. This is ongoing, this maniacal determination and commitment, and they're going to be committed, and they're also going to prison. But they're committed to, I'm going to keep stalking. I don't care that you're being documented, and that's going to be in the forefront of their prosecution when they're going to prison. All right, I want you to listen to the entity that is stalking. I want you to pay attention. The officials in the city are going to prison. They're being prosecuted, and the entity is being stripped of all finances regarding the use for terrorism. This is P.O.C. And 6LUX, just like I documented that license plate, they're still stalking while the entities, that's helicopter activity. This is psychopathic pacing, just like Michael Dorsey did under the fake sun at 1 o'clock in the afternoon, just like Michael Dorsey did at the same venue under the fake sun at 5 o'clock in the evening. American Guard services, they're engaging in, this is the communication of a threat, acts of war against an American citizen. The Fontana Police Department is being disbanded. It's as simple as that. They are being disbanded. They are not a police department, and they are overtly communicating an ongoing intention to engage in war against an American citizen while it's being documented. And you will be stripped of helicopters, you'll be stripped of police vehicles, you'll be stripped of a chair to sit on inside of that venue that they're deceptively calling a police department, and it's not that. The Fontana Police are another one that's being removed from existence. They're being disbanded. The gang members are going to be removed as terrorists as well, and they won't be able to fund terrorism anymore. And they're doing it with the people of the state. I'm taking pictures of that right now. This is the same mental illness by Ontario police. As I document them, those demons become more and more aggressive and hostile, and then they're engaging in what is flying over me for prolonged periods of time, like what they did the other night at the Ontario Town Square, what they're doing at the Ontario Village Shopping Center. They're doing so while the people of the state, employees and security guards alike, are engaging in that P.O.C. Don't be deceived. The demon that's wearing the dress, she's the one that's gang stalking as a security guard. All right, she's the same one, the psychopath who is always studying her device, and she's gang stalking with the Fontana Police Department right now. The mental illness is identical. It's demon possession, okay? So they're practicing what is a ritual. That's also why the behavior is identical. And that's also why you have the supernatural environment, okay, which is the same, and it's impossible that it would happen even once, okay? Michael Dorsey and the gang members of the Fontana Police Department are sharing in that pattern of conduct, and so are the people of the state. All right, so their mental illness is relevant to prosecuting, and I want to recite that license plate one more time. This is federal prison, and also disbanding while the entity is engaging in what are acts of war, while this is domestic terrorism in the United States, and this is how it's going to be prosecuted. While the people of the state are going to prison, the entity that's gang stalking, like San Bernardino County Fire, this is Mr. MUNSEY, who will not be remaining as a fire chief. He's not a fire chief, and he's not going to be further collect any checks, deceiving American citizens and abusing what are the resources in order to keep American citizens under surveillance, while he's engaging in what is a ritual, enriching himself in doing so. And this is the failure of that ongoing ritual. They're being shown to be nothing other than bare bones stalkers who are psychopathic, stalking with things such as light as a community under fake objects like a fake sun, while they're moreover sharing what is their engagement in this mentally ill behavior and speaking to and exposing what it's intended to result in and what it's obviously not accomplishing, and then documenting the fact that they're still doing it while it is ongoing warfare in the United States, domestic terrorists. These are enemies of the state that are going to be prosecuted just like that as enemies. And this demon's license plate, again, this is the entity that is stalking and devoted to engaging in terrorism with the government, that's sharing in that, and this is exactly what's going to be played, because there will be no hesitation to disband terrorists like Fontana Police and to prosecute and imprison terrorists like Michael Dorsey, to remove, and I just want to be clear, under the facts, you're talking about prosecuting terrorists like Aquanetta Warren as well, okay? They're all gang members. Lisa Hazen is a gang member. Prosecuting, I just want to be clear, this is the facts, these are the facts that are supporting all of the above. But this is the entity that's engaging in that, and they're doing so while you're documenting. Remember, they're monitoring all the evidence, and this is an act. These are engaging in acts of war against American citizens who are unprepared. They don't have ill-equipped. They don't have evidence. They don't know what to do about the mentally ill demons that are using illusions while they're stalking them, and it's supposed to be spooky and haunting and creepy to them while they're engaging in egregious sex acts like what Michael Dorsey is doing, stalking as a population. This is all the evidence that's going to remove terrorists that are going by the name of Fontana Police in Fontana, California. Okay, and again, this demon's license plate, not just them, but AGS as well. This is a federal RICO case. San Bernardino County, federal RICO case. The businesses that are engaged in the pattern of conduct, the city of Fontana, federal RICO case. And the criminal activity where the city is sharing in that P.O.C. All right, and this is serving to prosecute San Bernardino that you saw the fake sun over. Ontario that you already know the fake sun is over. Upland where where you saw the fake sun over. No one's forgetting about what Robert Luna and Dominic Choi are doing in Los Angeles. What Donnie Youngblood is doing while I go to Bakersfield and that fake sun is over me. But Michael Dorsey's keeping a fake sun over me while he is stalking me by helicopter and doing so with abandon. Like there is no consequence for terrorism in California, and that's exactly why he's going to prison, so that the world could witness the American stance toward terrorism. And no domestic terrorist or foreign terrorist is going to engage in acts of war against any American citizen and stand and remain free. Okay, the entities engaged in criminal summoning, that's San Bernardino County Fire, that's the Fontana Police Department, while the demons are stalking with light and pacing around by helicopter. And I just want to go ahead and recite the license plates again. That's mental illness. That's not a genuine, you're very well versed on the criminal conduct by Ontario. It's the same thing, it's just a different city name. License 6 Larry Uncle Xavier 729, this is federal prison. Criminal summoning is federal prison. Stalking by helicopter is federal prison. And the demons, more of them are added to the parking lot while the entities engage in that. So this is an ongoing demonic campaign while the demons call themselves making some sort of stance. This is the entity that thinks that in the United States they have some sort of ability to engage in this. These are acts of war in the country. These are domestic terrorists indeed. And I'm going to capture images of that right now. These are the demons that are going to be subject to prison, and this is where Fontana Police, I'm taking pictures right now, are pacing around. AGS is stalking in the path, monitoring with his device, doing so while the entity is sitting in the middle of the parking lot in a line of vehicles, gang stalking. All right, this is P.O.C, and this is all I am the focus here. All right, and I'm also the one that's prosecuting. So this is the entity that's engaged in that, and their ongoing focus is the ability to put terrorists in prison. License 21005 Robert 3. License, that's an African American, no, that's a white male with glasses on, 6LUX 729. Okay, driving off as I capture images, and he's creating activity. He's not ceasing to engage in monitoring. He's still devoted to the P.O.C. License 8 Zebra Wendy 732, they're gang stalking with the Fontana Police Department. And this is the type of allegiance that they have as terrorists. This is entirely un-American, and it's mentally ill, and it's that which they commit, they engage in before they murder someone. And this is supposed to be a ritual, and they're mentally ill, engaging in nothing other than stalking with light and stalking in the path. Okay, and they derive pleasure out of this. I'm just breaking down the totality of circumstances regarding an entity that is stalking in this manner, and they're doing it at the venue where you see in the video. This is where the fake sun is, and this is where the demon possessed are engaging in that. You're not keeping a county library where they can have a venue to engage in this and provide a shelter for terrorists to engage in that. And you're also not remaining out of prison when you're engaging in helping a police department engage in surveillance where they're pulling out helicopters to do so. You're not keeping a police department where you're engaging in using helicopters to stalk somebody. And moreover, you're doing so and you want to be mistaken for, that's the purpose of getting away with murder and kidnapping. Professional stalkers like Michael Dorsey. Okay, that's P.O.C. And Michael Dorsey is the cause for the ongoing criminal activity and the mentally ill behaviors of an entity that's engaged in monitoring me. While he's monitoring, and that's exactly why you're not remaining in position. Okay, and Michael Dorsey, I just want to be clear, this is an enemy of the state. He does not care about the fact that he's being prosecuted as a terrorist, that he's being prosecuted and that he's being exposed moreover, because that's analyzing the evidence. It's even simpler than that. You need to understand that this is an enemy of the United States, that a domestic one that's dwelling amongst us, cloaking himself as what is a chief of police. And he is aware and is monitoring the evidence, and he is blatantly disregarding and has no concern whatsoever about being exposed as a stalker, as a criminal, engaging in what is harassing and terrorizing an American citizen. This is why, as I'm capturing it, he's engaging in more and more of it, while aware, by the way, also how hostile to American citizens and to this country, especially while holding that position, while you are aware about the demons in Ontario and what's happening to them, the level of evidence against the Ontario Police Department, against the city of Ontario, the level of criminality that is a matter of evidence, and then the entity in Fontana, because of an inability to cease to engage in terrorism, because you're hostile, because you're caught, because you're accustomed to getting away with murder and stalking and all manner of mentally ill and sexually violent conduct, and so you do the exact same thing. They're entirely unfit, and they have been unfit. Michael Dorsey has been an enemy. And it requires one to do what it is that I'm doing in order for Michael Dorsey to show you his true colors. These are enemies of the country. And he is very clear. He is very clear in making that, unambiguous, okay, unequivocal statement of being an enemy of this country, being an enemy to American citizens, stalking them in helicopters, mowing over the top of my head by helicopter, flying in circles over me by helicopter, and having a bunch of demons, a bunch of dead people surround me with engineer light. It's a scene out of a horror flick, and he calls himself a police chief. He is not, and he's not going to be able to act and remain in that position. This is P.O.C. Okay, this is the mentally ill that engage in this before they commit murder. And Michael Dorsey is engaged in what is witchcraft and it's criminal activity. This is the criminalization of it. And the Fontana Police Department have already surpassed the threshold for disbanding by virtue of funding terrorism. And the city of Fontana does not need gang members that are spending millions of dollars. This is money that could be better and more responsibly utilized with regard to areas of law and the community that can use it, especially those that have been targeted, as opposed to enriching the pockets of those that are sitting and calling themselves mayors, calling themselves officials in the city, providing a salary for the city attorney. That's nothing other than a gang stalking vagina monitor, providing a paycheck, a salary for this terrorist, which is Michael Dorsey. And that's exactly what's going to cease. Providing funding, a budget for them to use helicopters and police vehicles and a venue for them to maintain the terrorism. No, this is exactly what is the demonstration that you don't need that department. That is funding this system, which is perpetuating violence amongst domestic terrorists, enemies of the country. And the enemies are not going to have any more resources, and they will be subject to prison and being put in mental facilities where they belong, as these videos show you, as the P.O.C. shows you, as they show you. This is P.O.C. It is currently 6:26 p.m. And this is, again, years of Michael Dorsey stalking me by helicopter as I walk outside of the library, as I walk to the library, doing so as he is mentally ill by virtue of doing so under the fake sun. It's a direct correlating means of evidence showing the mentally ill that are engaging in stalking under those circumstances. All right. And this is the entity that's sharing in that. I want to be clear. These demons that are engaging in that, they are triggered by literally every syllable that I utter. And this is what Mike LORENZ can't help either, stalking me incessantly the more that I document, and they're going to prison for it. Exhibit A. All right, this is Michael Dorsey that's maintaining ongoing helicopter activity. And I have not left the entrance. I just want to be clear, this is also evidence of clear targeting. This is the entity that's doing so, but you know that it's targeting if he flying over the Catholic Church in this direction, flying in circles. You can see him in the distance. He's targeting me, but he's doing so by flying over the venue itself, and he's doing so at 6:27 p.m. I walked out over 20 minutes ago, and this is also evidence that Michael Dorsey is very much targeting me. While the demons are engaged in what is stalking with light, which is what AGS is doing, American Guard Services, while the demon is flying over the top of my head the other night, flying over where Lisa Hazen works. She's not remaining as a branch manager. They're not ignorant about what's going on. This is a psychopath. They're going to prison. They're not security guards. They're engaged in stalking. They're engaged in targeting. They're engaged in vagina monitoring, and they're psychopaths. That pattern of conduct, keeping their back to you while they're stalking with police departments. This is the P.O.C. of the entity. AGS is sharing in that terrorism. I'm going to prosecute that company. This little local mom and pop company is not going to survive the civil and criminal prosecution, and these demons that are wearing the AGS uniforms are also going to be prosecuted. And this is federal prison. Michael Dorsey is maintaining helicopter activity as a means of retaliation while he is in real-time monitoring my evidence in concert with the people of the state. That's federal stalking. Title 18, 22618 subsections 1 and 2. That's again license 9KFN131, stalking with light. Doing so while the entity is psychopathic pacing over the library, hostile while I'm documenting, and doing so threatening my life. And stalking with light is threatening my life. Doing so together as an entity is threatening my life. And it's also engaging what is psychologically harmful warfare and war tactics in furtherance of murder. And this is an entity that's engaged in all manner, a plethora of criminal acts while gang stalking the entire time. Okay, so that's the Fontana Police Department over there. The entity has vast resources while they're engaging in surveillance, and this is exactly what's going to be removed. Terrorism in Fontana is going to be defunded, all right? And it's going to start with removing Michael Dorsey and removing departments like this that are engaging in the pattern of conduct. He's wasting approximately 30 minutes on fuel for a helicopter stalking me, targeting me. All right, that you're talking about what is considering the amount of resources where they're engaging in criminal activity, which is the evidence to remove a gang stalking police department, which is speaking to what is a criminal expenditure of funds that is funding terrorism, which is a basis to prosecute those such as Aquanetta Warren. It is currently 6:29 p.m. P.O.C. All right, I did capture another video of, this is Michael Dorsey's criminal activity and the Fontana Police Department. So the entity is stalking by flying in circles over me, and this is ongoing terrorism against an American citizen by domestic terrorists who are the Fontana Police Department, the city of Fontana, and doing so attacking while I'm in the midst of documenting, which is also relevant to what is retaliation and ongoing acts of terror and psychological torture because by virtue of me documenting in the first place. But I just want to document that, like I stated, like you can clearly witness, the objective is remaining with the helicopter activity and trying to horrify and terrorize somebody because I'm documenting it. Moreover, stalking in the first place. And it's also relevant that DARREN GOODMAN is documented today, that I am referring to terrorists that are sharing in the pattern of conduct like Donnie Youngblood in Kern County, like the entity that's gang stalking in Upland, Marcelo Blanco, sharing in the P.O.C. with Mike LORENZ. As I'm publishing my evidence that you can see on YouTube in real time, I'm subject to this terrorism while Michael Dorsey, the city of Fontana, the demon-possessed people of the state over and under majority are keeping me under surveillance. And this is the pattern of conduct that the demon-possessed that are terrorists, that are conspiring murder of the person that they're stalking. And they're doing so while they are hostile because I'm documenting and prosecuting them, and I'm not succumbing to their failed witchcraft, which is a bunch of crazy people who are obsessively stalking and monitoring my vagina. That's also why he's using helicopters. This is all a basis to defund terrorists such as the Fontana Police Department, enemies of the U.S., enemies of American citizens. I represent the entity that is I represent the entity that is targeting American citizens in my position and doing so where they don't have a voice. They're living in a bubble, and Michael Dorsey's a psychopath that derives pleasure out of keeping their genitalia under surveillance, stalking them. Dare they try to enforce their rights or speak up about it? And doing so now just as a matter of what is clear, you're just a delusional vagina monitor, literally, because the world is watching him engaging in this to me. I'm not documenting in a corner and no one knows what's going on. They're literally watching my social media moment by moment as the witnesses. That's what you all are. You're witnesses. And you're going to watch another demon be stripped of a position that Satan has had him in to engage in terrorism, targeting American citizens. And he's not holding on to it. And this Michael Dorsey is going to prison because he's not going to be successful. I could say he's going to be federally prosecuted. He is, but he's going to be unsuccessful. He is going to prison.
And this is an entity that is very maniacal. This is why when the result is prison and you are watching yourself on the internet, because they are very much watching my social media. You see yourself stalking in that helicopter. That's not going to end well. It's going to occur and be played within the walls of a federal tribunal. And the federal court is going to very much be listening to me as I'm prosecuting you. And you're going to prison for this. It's domestic terrorism. Proven and then prosecuted by yours truly. And the entities engage in what is more and more acts of war. That's what you're doing using helicopters and using police vehicles. These are acts of war by domestic terrorists. They're going to be stripped of these resources and stripped of funding and removed from the ability to do so, such as by going to prison and being removed from office and making sure that it is a matter of public information. The reason why, because you're a terrorist. This is what the entities engage in, and I just want to make sure that that is abundantly clear. Not only that Michael Dorsey is gang stalking me, everything that is entailed in gang stalking and how you're going to strip down those resources abused to do so, but also because the demons are mad that I went to San Bernardino. The demons are mad that I provide ongoing consistent analysis regarding what everybody else is doing and what Fontana is doing, because I'm using the computers inside of the library, every video that I publish, everything that they're triggered by, because the evidence is so persuasive, because the evidence is so clear, because there is evidence in the first place. In other words, Satan is both envious and triggered because he's exposed. Those are murderers and kidnappers, and Michael Dorsey is a so-called chief of them. And he's going to be put in prison just like any other foreign terrorist. He's an enemy, okay? The Fontana Police Department are enemies. This is P.O.C. It is currently 6:34 p.m., and that's the entity that's remaining, i.e. targeting me by helicopter, because I am documenting him. It does not get any more clear with regard to underscoring the fact that you hate this country, and you are hateful of this country while you are also at the same time in a leadership position of the executive branch in the city of Fontana. And that is why, the reason why he is both of that sentiment, hate-filled with this country and American citizens, and also in that position is because he is engaging in the surveillance system in order to abuse them, in order to get away with kidnapping and murdering them. And the answer is not more stalking like the Fontana Police Department are doing. The answer is going to be prison, stripping down and removal of that department altogether. There is much more profitable, beneficial, and constructive ways to use the millions of dollars that are used for the Fontana Police Department, which is not needed in Fontana. I just want to be clear, the Fontana Police Department are responsible for the crime rates. The demon-possessed people of the state are responsible for the crime rates. And the entities using the Fontana Police Department in order to facilitate an ongoing funding for terrorism, for surveillance that's underway in this country. That's no longer a secret. And you're not going to have a basis of funding that and maintaining that bully system, because that's all that Michael Dorsey is doing, which is what you're witnessing, stalking me by helicopter. And I'm getting every moment and putting it on the internet for you to witness, because you're going to witness these going to prison. And it's for the benefit of the world, because you need to understand that the United States will not stand for this. They will not. And if you engage in this, you will be subject to what is an act of war as well. The United States government, under any other circumstances, is not going to stand down from somebody or some country or some little nation or country that thinks that they're just going to offend the country, provoke, and that the United States is just not going to say anything. This is domestic terrorism. This is terrorism happening within the jurisdiction of the U.S. by those that are in positions where they're supposed to be protecting us. And you're literally attacking and engaging in war against an American citizen. You're going to prison. You're going to prison. And not only that, those that are wearing these uniforms, their mental illness is at the outset of their pattern of conduct. You're not just going to prison. You're going to be subject to what are routine mental examinations. Mandatory. This is P.O.C. at 6:36 p.m. Alrighty, this is the entity that's engaged in what is the ongoing campaign regarding surveillance and psychological torture when mentally ill people are stalking and pursuing you in demented ways. This is Fiesta Motors. This is a demon that's parked illegally, and the gate is closed on this property. Actually, that's abandoned. But this is where I'm walking on the sidewalk, and this is a means of stalking with light, aiming light in my direction in order to molest me with it. Okay, that's impossible light activity. This is not the product that you see this gate that's appearing. There's multiple levels of the gate. And this is Fiesta Motors. I'll prosecute the company. This is multiple shadows. That's mentally ill behavior. That's a population that knows who I am. This is the city of San Bernardino sharing in the criminal pattern of conduct. The city of Ontario sharing in the pattern of conduct. The city of Upland sharing in the same exact pattern of conduct. And that's psychotic. You see how that's psychotic what they're engaged in. That's someone that wants to murder me. License plate 9KVY560, I believe. That's the entity that's conspiring murder together. Fiesta Motors, RICO case. I'm going to prosecute them. It's not based on the fact that the hours are closed. Fiesta Motors is a gang stalking business, and it is improvident that they're gang stalking outside of your business where it's located, because I'm going to prosecute you. And because of the government is so genius, the government has provided evidence also against all of the city of Ontario where I'm being stalked, including where Fiesta Motors is, including all over Hope Boulevard, where the entity is stalking me with light. Light that is impossible to occur. Not from their headlights, and is also stopping in the middle of the street, aiming light toward me. It doesn't get any more psychotic than that. Very clear targeting. Very clear. As clear as flying over the top of my head and in circles over me by helicopter. This is a population. Okay? The world is watching them stalking me. The world is, you're watching them, the witnesses, you are all watching them stalk me. You're looking at the evidence of their demon possession. Why are they still stalking? That's what you need to be paying attention to, because this is the very conduct that's establishing precedent in this country regarding very real behavioral health concerns, where a city like Ontario is going to be recognized as a mental health concern, a national security threat, and any and everybody living. And you can do that based on the city of Ontario's pattern of conduct, which is proven already beyond a reasonable doubt, underway by the government. P.O.C. It is currently, that's absurdly psychotic. What the entity is doing, that's a demon, and that's somebody that knows exactly who I am and where I'm located. Speaking to all of them, everybody, everywhere that I'm going. P.O.C. It is currently 9:40 p.m.